What's up, everybody? We're about to do episode 2 of GLHF with Matt Heafy, featuring one of my favorite people in the world, Alex Bent. Before we get into that, these GLHFs, I'm going to get better at saying that, are brought to you by my friend, my training partner, John Dill. John Dill is a fellow leg lock aficionado. He's the one that actually bought me the John Danaher leg lock DVD instructionals, which I'm obsessed with. So he's actually one of my Gracie Baja, North Orlando teammates. He has his own law profession, John W. Dill, trial lawyer. He's been practicing law for a very long time. He works in personal injury, medical malpractice, birth injuries. He has settled over $200 million worth of litigations. He has litigated over 200 jury trials. If you need law services, just scroll slightly down below. You'll see it's the second image right there. John W. Dill, one of my good buddies. His number is on there. All that good stuff right there. John W. Dill, if you need him. And he is the one that is bringing you all these GLHFs. He can snap your leg, and then he can find the people responsible to take care of that, which would be himself. Anywho, John W. Dill is an amazing person. And if you're looking for those services, johnwdill.com. Thank you very much, John, for making these vodcasts happen. Now, the person on today's GLHF, you all know him. One of your favorite people ever is the man, Alex Bent drums. Give him a ring right now. I believe we're playing some Call of Duty afterwards as well. Let's get him on here. Let's test this out. I don't know how his audio levels are going to be. Let's see. Last time we did a Discord call together, we were playing Fortnite. So let's see how this goes. Hope it's not just my mug that you see. Luckily, we share the same mod, so any issues, we'll have this sorted real quick. I think it's ringing. We are a minute early. So maybe we could set up some fun custom games or something like that. Chat, if you want, we could do like, I don't know, Swear will know the best thing to do. We could do custom 6v6. In COD, I believe it's cross-platform, so we can have Team Alex, Team Matt, or me and Alex on a team fighting people. We could do something like that. Team deathmatch. Maybe that's a good place to start. Make sure all my stuff is correct as well. Up.
Hey.
Is that him? Yo.
What up? Can you see me?
I don't see you yet.
Oh, here. You'll see me right now. How about now?
Yay. Everybody look who it is. Are you streaming right now too?
I am, yeah. I'm kind of just chatting it up with some people.
Awesome. All right, everybody, that is twitch.tv/Alex Bent Drums. We can get a co-stream going right now. Make sure all following him if you're not already. I'm sure you already are, but make sure everybody is. So thanks so much for doing this, man.
Dude, thank you. I was really stoked because like I was telling you when I was texting you, I was gonna head out to practice, but there's a chance that building might not be able to like operate at all because of the shutdown. So I was like, I mean, this sounds cooler anyway. I'd rather just chill with you and do this. This is rad. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry that's happening. Will you be able to figure out some? Oh, you got your pads and stuff at the house, right?
Yeah, I got pads, and the owner is actually like really cool. So I haven't talked to him yet. I heard from another drum instructor that he wasn't like allowing people to give lessons, but I'm not going for lessons. I'm going to practice. So I just gotta, hash it out with him. So no biggie.
It's black market illegal drum practicing.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm like sneaking around between counties because we're technically not even supposed to like leave for that. But anyways, I don't know.
Man, that's nuts. Yeah, that was gonna be my first thing. Like, what have you guys been doing since this whole thing? What have you been up to?
Pretty much just that. Just like going to practice and then giving a lot of drum lessons, which has been rad.
I saw a dog run across.
Oh, did you? Yeah, Brookie. Yeah, and then speaking of Brookie, taking her for lots of walks.
Yeah.
Just basically doing everything while trying to stay away from like large groups of people.
Yeah. That's a good call, man. That's a good call. Yeah, this sucks. I mean, you and I were so excited. Alex and I had never been to Japan or Asia together, so all we were doing was talking about like what we're gonna eat over there, and now we're.
Dude, I was like daydreaming just about like platters and
I
platters of
know,
sushi.
man.
Just like that was the thing I was most like bummed about. And then of course second was like the shows. I was like,
I'm
yeah,
with
that
you.
sucks too, but I wanted to eat so
Yeah,
much
man,
sushi.
dude, I was looking forward to just eating and hanging out so much so, but yeah, we'll be back again. But ugh, that was such a bum
Yeah.
out. That was such a bum out. But yeah, I've always wanted to ask as well because we've talked about it a little bit, but everyone else I'm sure really wants to know when and why did you start playing drums? How old were you? When did you go? I want to play drums. Like, what was it?
I was 11 years old and I was like hanging out with some friends. That's not the important part of the story, but I came home from
It
hanging
is.
out with friends,
Yeah.
just doing whatever. I was like 11 and this was when they were still actually playing music videos on MTV. It was probably like the last era cuz it was like bands like Blink 182 and Green Day and stuff. Like, now you go on MTV, it's all like Jersey Shore and stuff, but I don't know. I caught a little bit of that. So there would be these music videos that would come on, and this music video for the song Ocean Avenue came on by the band Yellow Card. I don't know if you remember that band at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it kept showing the drummer every time he'd do a fill, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So right there, I asked my dad if he could set up his old drum set in the garage, and then I just hopped right into it. I started playing along to like simple stuff like Blink 182 and Michael Jackson and trying to play the Yellow Card and stuff. And then it just from there, I just never stopped really.
That's awesome. It's so funny because you, Paulo, and myself, we all started with pop punk. Like all
Yeah.
of us got like Paulo and I was Blink 182 first, and you was like Yellow Card. What year was this for you? So everyone can put it in perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So I was 11. I want to say this was around like 2004 or something like
Damn,
that. Like
that's
this was
nuts,
like
man.
early 2000s, 2003, 2004. Cuz yeah, it was when all those bands were, that stuff was popular. So I was a huge Travis Barker fan. I was really into like Sum 41, Good Charlotte, pretty much like the whole like Warp Tour, The Offspring, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's awesome.
Um yeah, so
When did you discover metal? Like, what was the first metal band? Like after you were like jamming all this punk stuff, why did it call your name?
Because I kept getting hooked on like fast drums. I was like, I thought like the fills that were happening in Yellow Card were really fast, but I was like, well, there has to be faster. So I started getting into like I think the first like double bass I heard was like Mudvayne. They were like in this movie. I think the
Yeah.
movie was called Ghost Ship. It's like old. I'm like talking about
I
all this
remember the
old
box.
stuff.
I
Yeah,
remember the
yeah.
box.
So I heard that and then I was like, "Whoa, like that was pretty intense." And then I started going on the internet and I discovered bands like Slipknot. I had an uncle too that listened to a lot of like metal. Like he listened to like I don't know, like Ramstein, Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails, and I want to say he had some Slipknot too. So I had my uncle, blasting that stuff in the car, and I was always just like, man, like I just want to see what's the fastest. So I was into metal for a long time, like Lamb of God, Slipknot, that whole thing, and I was like, okay, like nothing will ever get faster than this stuff. And then I discovered Slayer. I was like I heard Raining Blood and I was like, whoa. So then I got into thrash and then death metal and black metal, and it was always just like, what's the craziest thing?
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, that was also like the same course. I don't know if Paulo was the same, but probably. But for me, it was like pop punk, Blink 182 and stuff, and then Metallica. But then it was Slipknot that really made me want to get more extreme. And I don't know if you
yeah.
knew this, but the first song Trivium ever played live was "Sick" by Slipknot.
No
We
way.
opened up with that, yeah. And I wasn't the singer at the time; I was just a guitar player. So someone else was singing it.
Okay.
And then when he left, then I would sing and play it. And I also at the time wore a lot of ball chain necklaces because that was the cool thing in
Yeah.
2000. And it was funny when you were mentioning you were just like getting like when you're 11, 2003, 2004. A bunch of people were like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, I feel old," and I was like, "Oh man, I feel old too." But it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like there is no right age to start because I've had a lot of people ask me things like what was the death metal scene like living in Florida? And I would say to them like that was like 94. I was how old was I at that time? I was like
Yeah.
6 years old. I definitely wasn't into it.
Yeah.
You have a really extensive knowledge of death metal and extreme metal.
hmm
What were the first couple bands that got you into that? Because you said like the Slipknot path and all that stuff. What was the first sort of extreme thing that pulled you in?
Yeah, well, I was I followed a lot of drummers. Like following drummers is what exposed me to different kinds of music. And all those bands. Like I was always everything like jazz, Latin drummers and all that. That's what got me to like have this love for all these different kinds of music. But as far as the to answer your question, the extreme stuff, I was a big fan of the drummer Tim Young. I saw him live and he was filling in for the band All That Remains. He wasn't ever part of the band. He was just doing that tour, I think. And it was them and Killswitch Engage. So I saw that show when I was about 13. And that was the first time I ever heard like triggers and like, intense drumming in a live situation like that, where I was like, who is that drummer? Like, what's that guy's story? So I ended up talking to him at that show. And then I started looking at all the bands that he had played with before, and they are all extreme death metal bands. Like he had played with Vital Remains, he
That record
played
is so
with
good.
yeah, he played with Vital Remains, he played with Nile, he played with Decrepit Birth, like this whole like long list of bands that I was like, I've never heard of this before, but I'm gonna check it out just because he's the drummer. And then that's when my mind was like blown. Like the album Dechristianize, I had that on repeat nonstop, and I'd come home from school and try and play along to it like every day. And that really kind of developed that like taste for that extreme music. Cause I'm not sure if I would have gone that route on my own if it weren't for the drumming. It's not that I like loved Cookie Monster growling or anything. I was just like, I just want to hear the fastest stuff possible. So I got into Nile, Origin, all the brutal stuff. And then once I started playing in Archaic in like 2012, that's when I was like in that world where I was just constantly like, all right, like the old stuff, the new stuff, like I want any of the extreme stuff I could possibly get my hands on.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people know you from Battlecross, a little bit from Archaic, definitely from Trivium. You've played
Mhm.
with a lot of bands. Can you take us through the
Yeah.
beginning, like the first band you started playing with, all the way up and through to like where we are now? Because I
Oh
want to
my
know too.
lord.
Yeah, because it's
Oh
I know
my
it's a lot.
gosh. It's a lot, but I'll try and condense it all. Yeah, let me see.
Give,
Okay,
give us
so
give us the whole in depth. I think it'd be really eye
yeah.
opening for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So the I was doing a lot of local stuff before I started touring. Like when I was about 15, since I started playing, I always wanted to play with musicians, with artists. So like I'd practice by myself a lot, but I was also like when I was 15, I was playing with the Modesto Junior College, the junior college jazz band. So I was like playing with like a lot of older people when I was like 15, and then I played with a local reggae band called Brada, and then I played in the band Hatriot for a while. That was Zetro from Exodus reaching out to me, going, "Man, I love your playing. I'm gonna start this like sick thrash side project." So I was doing a lot of stuff in my area and around the Bay Area, and then the first tour I did was with a hardcore band called Through This Defiance, which I don't think they're even a band anymore.
Hmm.
But they're from LA, and it was like it was kind of like Hate Breed meets Terror kind of vibe. So I did that, and it was a small tour. It was like, just pretty much playing bars around the country for a month. And that was like my first exposure to like being on the road. And then the next tour I did was with Archaic, and that was us opening for Cannibal Corpse. That was in 2012. And that was when everything just really started to like unfold. That's where I met a lot of people that are still like in my life to this day, like Sean Glass, like those are the
Hmm.
tours that I met people like that eventually connected me to you guys.
Hmm.
So yeah, I did Archaic, and then I went from Archaic to oh my gosh, what happened after that? Oh, I went from Archaic to filling in for Rings of Saturn, because of friends that I met on that tour. So I did Rings of Saturn. I did a tour with them, and then the bass player who was playing with Rings of Saturn also played with the band Decrepit Birth. So I started playing with Decrepit Birth. This is around 2013. I went to Europe with them for the first time, for me at least, and did a bunch of awesome shows. Came back, and then I think I did a US tour with them as well. And then I went straight from Decrepit Birth. to what was I doing? Oh my gosh. What was it? I'm sorry. I'm just like
No,
trying
this
to
is
go.
awesome. I mean, everyone's like, "Holy cow, Alex played with all those bands too." Like, I
Yeah.
remember you like I forgot that you played with Rings of Saturn as well. Till I remember you told me before, but
Yeah. I forget because it's like all these.
that's a
I was
lot.
always like I was filling in for so many bands. Like
So was it
just
mostly like live session stuff, but I know you did a lot of CD stuff as well. I know you did a lot of like record stuff with these bands too.
yeah. Well, that at that point that was all like live stuff. I was
Hmm.
going and touring with those bands and mainly just like filling in. Archaic was like my band. So in between all these tours I was doing with these bands, I would always come back to Archaic and do tours with them. And I did Archaic's records. Um, Okay, and then so I met Sean Glass around that time, and then Sean introduced me to Eric Peterson. That's right.
Hmm.
So it was Eric Peterson from Testament, but at the time he was doing his black metal project called Dragon Lord. So I
Hmm.
started doing that with him. I did the Dragon Lord record, and then that's how I started working with Testament because Gene Hoglan was busy with a million of his projects, everything from Death Clock to you name it, he's always everywhere, the Atomic Clock. um so I just happened to be there. I was already doing the Dragon Lord record with Eric, and him and I would just jam. So he would throw riffs at me that were not only Dragon Lord but Testament too. He'd be like, hey, I got this really cool thrash riff, can you help me kind of come up with something? And then that evolved to me you know pretty much doing the whole record. uh
Formation, right?
no, not Formation, Brotherhood of the Snake. So that was me and Eric just writing together. And then that led to me being able to fill in with Testament, which was an amazing experience.
I mean, that
And
part
this,
is like I hope everybody knows. Like Alex, like from what I've been hearing from the woodwork from other people, Alex wrote the drums for that record. Does everybody understand that? That's insane. That's insane. Like Testament's one of the bands that got me into metal, that taught me how to play, that like was one of my biggest inspirations. So the fact that you were able to write a lot of the parts is ridiculous. That is so cool. Like
it
what
was
a testament. Yeah. What a
it was
testament to
to the Testament. Well, I wouldn't want to sit here and be like, oh, like I wrote everything. I mean, Eric Peterson, he taught me a lot, and he would throw a lot of cool ideas at me too. Like for me, it was like a really big a big growth experience because I was pretty much like his drum machine. He would kind of tell me what to play, and then I would start to throw my own ideas and licks in there, and he would go, "Oh, that's rad! Like keep that, keep this." And it was a cool thing. I got to learn a lot. It was cool to get into someone's head. I wanted to think a lot like Gene and like other drummers that have played in Testament. I mean, Testament has had some of the best metal drummers, so I wanted to think in that mindset of like, what would Gene do here? What would Nick Barker do here? What would Dave Lombardo do here? So yeah, it was like going to school for me, man. And I was really stoked with how that record had come out, and being able to play with them live was great. And at the same time that all of this was happening, I was playing in Battlecross too.
that's
So
nuts.
I would go out on the road and tour with them, and then I would come home, and Eric would hit me up and be like, "Hey, can you drive up to Sacramento and let's work on the record or work on some Dragon Lord stuff?" Um, and then I randomly got hit up to do a record with the band Alter Beast, which is that record I
Yep,
showed you
that
that you
album's
seem to dig that.
incredible. Holy cow! Yeah, like anybody that's like fans of like Black Dahlia kind of stuff, like it's like that, but faster. It's that
Yeah.
record is insane, man. That record is really insane.
Yeah, that's a really great band. Another Unique Leader Records band. And then what else? Oh, and then Brain Drill fell into place very randomly. I grew up a Brain Drill fan since I was younger, since like 2006 or 2007. They're one of those bands I always like had to share people. I had to share it with people because I was like, it's so extreme and obnoxious. It's almost
It's
silly, but
so
it's
good.
awesome.
That was the video. That was the video. Like when we knew. So Trivium has had what have we had, including you. We've had 4 studio drummers, and now including live drummers, we'd had 5. And it was the time of
Yeah.
drummer 4, and I knew we had to do a change again. I was like, all right, it's that time. I felt this before already multiple times in the past. We got to do this change. I didn't talk to the band. Instead, I texted Mark Lewis. I was like, all right, Mark, I need who's the guy? Who should be playing drums for Trivium right now? What do I do? We need someone immediately. Without even hesitation, he immediately texts back. He's like, Alex Bent. I was like,
That's
all right, dude,
awesome.
send me something of his. He sent me a collection of videos. And I remember because the name Brain Drill stuck out. I'm like, I gotta look at this. I watched the Brain Drill video of you in the studio when you had that big fro, and you're doing that like alternating hand blast beating, like blasting with this hand and hitting cymbals over here. As soon as I saw it, I was like, that's the guy. I knew instantly when I saw that Brain Drill clip. That's hard for an Asian guy to say. Brain Drill clip of you. I was like, that's the freaking dude. So I was like, Mark, like, how come you didn't recommend him before? Because we asked Mark previously when we were looking for the live drummer for, I think, Silence in the Snow. I think it's hard to remember. It's hard to remember Life Before Alex. But he's like, yeah, I would have recommended him before, but he's like, he was with Battlecross at the time, and he's like, that's the only reason why. I was like, holy cow! And I tried to look up. I saw some people asking here too. They were like, was Alex with Battlecross when Battlecross toured with Trivium? But no, they weren't. That was like right before and then after.
It was literally, I think, like the tour before I joined the band, if I'm not mistaken. So they toured with you like right
Trespass
before.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we did another one with them right when you were out, I think, like years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's when I knew. It was from that Brain Drill clip, and that was ridiculous. But what's really great, I'm glad, because I started formulating all this stuff, like just guest things. I'm glad you made the playlist. Do people just find that playlist on your Instagram? Did you highlight that story of like every record you've played on? Is that where that is?
I did. Yeah, I have my my Spotify list of bands that I played with that are actually me on the record. There's a lot more that I played with live, but as far as on my Spotify, those are all the records that I've been on. So it's everything. It's Dragon Lord, Alter Beast, Brain Drill, Archaic, Dragon Lord. I don't know if I said that already, but yeah, like
which Dragon Lord record are you on?
the last one he did, it's called Dominion, and I think they ended up releasing it in 2018 actually.
What?
But
I
we did that.
didn't hear that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it was able to get a whole lot of press because, we finished the record a while ago, like before I was actually doing the Testament stuff. Like we did Dragon Lord, and we kind of just like put it away because Eric is, obviously very busy with Testament, and then I started playing with you guys, so it was like we didn't really have time to do a bunch of press. But this is actually the record right here. I don't know if you could see it or not.
Holy cow! I didn't even know about this one. How did I not know about this?
Yeah,
that's nuts.
It's a really good record too, I must say. I mean, I'm really proud of it. It's really heavy, and it shows a different side of Eric. Like everyone knows Eric for being a thrasher, obviously, but he's actually, I mean, he's got the black metal down, man. He's I think you especially, Matt, would love this.
Yeah,
record,
damn.
so.
I'm gonna pre-save that now. Like I remember you talked to me before about doing a Dragon Lord record, but I didn't know it came out.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna get that ready.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. It's a banger. It's
damn, that's insane. I can't wait to hear that. That rules.
So I'm sorry, guys. My history is
no, it's fine.
As my
it's
brain
fine.
Is. I wish I was more like I could
just make a list someday, because I find that stuff super interesting. Like I'm glad that you put on your Instagram. So everybody go to Alex's Instagram. You'll see his highlighted stories, the playlist that he's mentioning. It's every record he's ever played on. You need to check that out. And it'd be cool too if you found like a live song from every band you ever played through, and just to had that for yourself. I like to keep lists of things, as you already know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. So that's just about everything. And then you got the call about Trivium. Was that the next thing that came?
No, there was another thing before that. So a good friend of mine, one of the best drummers in the world, my hero, my bro, he called me, Eric Moore. He's amazing. He called me and he was like, "Hey, bro," he's like, "This guy named Angel Vivaldi is looking for a drummer for a tour, but there's a lot of double bass stuff. I'm not a big double bass guy, but you are. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Let's do it." At this point, I had been off the road for about a year, so I was itching, and I didn't really know what the future was going to hold. But I was stoked to do this tour, so I called Angel. I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, "Looks like you need a drummer." My buddy called and said, he thinks I would be good for it. And he was like, "Yeah, I heard about you, and that would be great if you'd be interested. Oh, by the way, Gus G is going to be on that tour. Would you be down to learn his set list as well?" So I was like, okay, I could probably pull that off. So I went on the road and I played 2 set lists back to back every night. Angel's music was insane to try to learn.
His stuff is nuts, man.
yeah, it was insane. So I did that. I learned his stuff. I learned Gus's. Went out, had a great time, and then I was feeling really good at this point. I was feeling like really sharp and kind of like ready for anything. And then thankfully everything lined up to where that was when it fell into place with you guys, and I
Yeah.
was able to start working with you.
That's awesome. So like I know from my end, I was like, all right, Mark, no one can know about this. You cannot tell anybody.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like, all right, so everybody that doesn't know Sean Glass, I've known Sean Glass as well since I was like 17 years old. He's amazing, one of the biggest supporters of everything everyone in this band's ever done, one of our closest friends. I call him the Perez Hilton of metal. Like he knows everything. He knows all the gossip on everybody at all times. He doesn't like go and spread it, but he knows it. He knows what's going on. And Mark was like sworn to secrecy. He's like, I'm not gonna tell anybody. But somehow Sean Glass found out. I think because we said, I forgot how we did it. Like, do you remember how we did it?
Sean's the one that called me.
He called you. I didn't
Yeah.
even talk to him. That's so ridiculous. Because I just told Mark, I was like, Mark, filter the word through to Alex. Do a couple
Yeah.
playthroughs of Trivium, but don't say why. But then for some reason, Sean calls you. So how did Sean find out? Because I try to keep the secret.
I was actually rehearsing with Archaic, and we just finished rehearsal. And I looked down at my phone, and it's like, "You're getting a call from Sean Glass." And every time Sean Glass calls me, there's something.
He likes to call.
Every
He likes to call.
Yeah, well, he always calls me, and he's always like that voice that's like, "Hey, bro, I heard about this," or "I heard about that." And yeah, I mean, I love talking to Sean, but I figured, oh, cool, like what's going on with him? What's he gonna throw at me this time? And I knew it was something big because of the way that he was talking to me. He's like, it was almost sounded like he was like whispering or something. He's like, "Hey, bro, I need to talk to you, man." He's like, so Trivium. He's like, they're gonna need. He's like, what did he say? He's like, they're uh they're gonna be needing a drummer, and I think you would be the right one, man. He's like, I need you to learn Rain and World Goes Cold and get it to me as soon as possible. And like that was pretty much the entire conversation. He's like, you need to make a video and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay. I was like, sure. So I hung up the phone with him, and then I went immediately to Spotify and learned those songs, and then I recorded those songs the next day. So I was still kind of like learning the songs while I was trying to make the tryout videos for you guys. But I wanted to get it into you guys as soon as possible because I had no idea the details. I didn't know if there was like 10 other guys that were going to send their videos into you. I really didn't want to miss out on the opportunity. So I sent them in as soon as possible. And then I was at home later that night, and then that's when I got the call from Paolo, and then we set it up to where I was gonna fly out to Florida and hang out with you guys for a couple weeks and jam, and then go from there. But yeah, that's how it all kind of fell into place. Was Sean Glass, just
I'm
giving me
trying to
that
figure out how
call.
he found out because I was like, all right, Mark, you tell him. But Mark must have talked to
Yeah,
Corey, and then maybe Mark kicked the can to Corey, and then Corey told Sean, and then Sean told you.
yeah, absolutely.
But it all worked out
That
for the best because, like, I remember before Live Drummer 4, like, we looked at like 10 different people, 10, 15 people. And, like, you were always a name that came up, but everyone's like, oh, no, but he's playing with Battlecross. So that's not going to happen.
right, right.
But, man, we're thinking of lucky stars because, like, right now, my voice sounds this shot because we've been doing so much press. Like, that press tour got canceled in addition to Asia. So I've been doing like 1 to 3 to 4 hours of press a day. What's
Wow.
awesome is just like Sin, I was so used to when we first changed from drummer 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 and then quote 4 into 5, the questions everywhere before you was always why. But with Sin, no one asked why. Everyone said, now we see what you were looking for as a band the whole time, which is awesome because every single other time they're like, why did you switch? Why? Why did this happen? And this time there's no why. Like everybody understands. So which is really cool. And like someone, maybe I said it, maybe someone said it, then I corrected them. But they're like, well, you should have just had Alex all along. I was like, yeah, that would have been awesome. But what, 2004, how old were you?
Young, like I
Like
was still learning how to play
11?
drums. I was still learning. I don't even think I knew what a blast beat was at that point. I might have
Man,
not
yeah.
even had a double
So
bass pedal yet.
that's why. So we were just killing time till you came around. That's all it was.
That's awesome. No, that's to hear that is really cool, man. And I mean, especially for a band like you guys that like are so established and have
Us
such a
guys.
strong
Us
history.
guys.
Well, no, I mean just like Yeah, but I mean, like, just for the band itself, even before I came around, just the fact that like I come in and there's that acceptance and that look at me, I'm very thankful for it. Cause like I look at it like you guys were already so established before me and doing so much amazing things. And the fact that I get to come in at this point and be a part of it and continue the legacy with you guys is really rad for me. Like I'm stoked about it, you know?
That's
Like
awesome, man.
I agree with you. I think that it worked out perfectly. Like who knows like if if I was in the band at that time or earlier, maybe I wouldn't have been ready for it. Maybe, you know, like the universe wouldn't have been
Hmm.
because all everything that I'm talking about when I'm sharing with you, like the bands that I've played with, every single thing was a learning experience in a different way, like musically and what to do on the road and what not to do on the road and like how you carry yourself. All those things are very important. So like if I got a call from you when I was like 18 or 19 years old and it was like, hey, we want you to join this ginormous band and just start playing arenas and like I who knows how I would have taken it at that time. Would I have been ready? I want to say yeah, but you never know because it took for me like 10 years of growth on tour of like establishing how I do this, I guess,
Hmm.
if that makes
Definitely.
sense. You
No,
know
that
what I mean?
100%, 100%. Because like I was doing interviews, like you know the history with the UK, and to put it all in a nutshell for you and everybody, Ascendance of UK was the only time in the band's history that we were ever a press band. That was the only time ever
Right.
that we're on every magazine cover. They said we're going to be the biggest band in the world. I said we're going to be the biggest band in the world. When that happened, every single band hated us. So we very
Right.
quickly, our favorite bands would bully us on tour. They treat us like crap on tour. They talk badly about us in press. I remember reading some of my favorite bands talking shit about me personally in magazines, and they never even met me before. So that
That
kind of
must have
stuff, like,
sucked.
dude, it was crazy. It was crazy. So then that like further isolated us into ourselves, and we didn't have other bands to grow up with. And all we had was the UK press. And then we made Crusade, and it was my idea. It wasn't like the other guys' idea. It was my idea to rebel because I was so upset about those other bands not respecting us, about metal people not understanding us. But I should have been focusing on, like, here's all the good stuff happening. But even at that time, like, we've told you the details. We won't tell everybody else the details. But, like, for everyone, I remember the UK at our peak, and our peak was only, like, we only got to enjoy it for 9 or 10 months. We were presented with a gold record at a double sold out night in London. We go upstairs, lock the door. The four of us are all screaming at each other, throwing stuff in the dressing room. Like that's the chemistry of the band that we had at that time, which is stuff that
Yeah.
like I won't delve too much into it publicly, but it was a weird time. So we made the Crusade to rebel, and then the country that said we were going to be the biggest band in the world then said we were the worst band in the world and that we were over. And the UK tried to bury us from that moment on. So basically, from the
Wow.
Crusade forward, like no bands like this. So we weren't a bands band. We weren't the kind of band that like bands watch us from the sides. And you've even seen that. Like we're not the kind of band like bands
Yeah.
wear our shirts and talk about us and stand on the side of the stage. However, our crowd is
Yeah.
always bigger. Our crowd is always thicker than the
For sure.
band's band. And we've also not been a press band for that one time. So it's just been so good to finally have four people that all have the same head on their shoulders, four amazing people that are all good people at heart, that all have the same values. That when you came in and we gave Alex like a list, I think it was like 16 or 18 songs across most of our records. So like learn all this
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
You came in having all the material day one. I think it was day one or day two after we played the set. We're like, do you want to write the new record now? We're like, do you want to start working on some new stuff? I think that's when we sprung on you. I don't remember if we told you
Yeah.
beforehand. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was. It was like all at once because yeah, it was like everything happened so fast. It was like 1 second I was sitting in Modesto getting that call from Palo, and the next I was in your guys' warehouse, in the band's warehouse with you guys going over the European set, and then also like, okay, we did all that. Now let's start working on the new stuff. It was like all so fast,
Mm-hmm.
but it was
I,
fun.
yeah, man, it was amazing. I see one question here that I got to address. They're asking, is
Sure.
that why you guys hate the Crusade so much? We don't hate the Crusade. It's just, it was a weird time in our history. There's a couple songs that I love and a couple songs that we love. There's a couple things that reached. Like, The Rising is not a Trivium song. I don't know if you've listened to that song much, Alex. You should check it out. The Rising has become a meme on my channel. It's
Really?
like, if it were a rock band song, it would be perfect. But when you hear it and you're like, this is Trivium, it just doesn't make sense. So we like... The Crusade, Vengeance Falls, and Silence were the only times that Trivium ever said, let's stay in this lane. Let's stay right here, and let's not go too far over here. Let's not go too far over here. Silence and Vengeance was the producer's ideas, and Crusade was mine. But everything else, including the new one and the last two, it's like, let's allow everything. And so when
Yeah.
you've got a band with like four people finally capable of anything, then you get a result like Sin and Dead Men.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And yeah, going to like what you said about like everyone kind of being on the same page, that was a big part of my like introduction with you guys. I remember when Paolo called me, the first thing he said is obviously you can play, but we'd like to hang out with you. So I can tell that you guys were looking for more than just a session player who could play drums and that's it.
Yep.
I could tell you guys were looking for someone that you could live with, a roommate, you know, that you could be
Hmm.
around. And even before I jammed with you guys, Paolo flew out to San Francisco. I remember because he was getting a tattoo done, and he wanted to just get together with me and talk and see where my headspace was. Because
Yep.
when you agreeing with what you were saying, when you have four guys that all are in the same headspace, like we have certain things that we want to accomplish, we have a goal. All of that is super important. You know, you could have really good players, but if you all are in different headspaces, the whole ship could come sinking down. You know, so
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's
um,
that's a thing that like I'm not putting it at the faults of the other people that we've had playing drums in the band, but
yeah,
I'll put it at the
absolutely,
fault of all four of each different times of those. Obviously, it wasn't just the playing. The four of us, our chemistry wasn't there, and the chemistry has been
right,
so right, and that's why you get when you get music like this. A lot of people asking like, oh well, how did you guys make this music? Did you guys think, well, let's go back to something? We just made whatever we felt. We didn't really think or talk too much about it. I remember we just started playing, and it's whatever we
yeah.
felt good about. I think that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah,
Man.
definitely. It's got to be natural, and people will feel that when they listen to it, you know. And I think that is a big thing with the Sin the Sentence and what the Deadmen say is you have, you know, four dudes just jamming out and doing what we like to do,
Hmm.
um, and that's when you get the best result.
Absolutely. And we're such a rarity as well because you and I and Paul and Corey and a lot of people have all heard the horror stories of bands that exist, big and small. That they only
Hmm.
see each other on stage. They don't talk.
Yeah,
We've been the band. Like, I mean, that Ascendancy era through Crusade up until Shogun, we didn't really talk in the band. Like, none of the
right.
four of us spoke to each other. When we did the Crusade, it was one guy in, one guy out. No one was really hanging. But our
Yeah,
dynamic now, like, I mean, everyone saw the Instagram post because this is our audience, but it's amazing that like my wife and I couldn't go out because our twins, and then the three of you guys show up to my house with sushi and beer. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's so cool, and I'm so lucky to have three band members like you guys, and I feel like all four of us feel that luck too because like if we have to be away from our loved ones, there's no other people I can imagine being with 24/7. So like I'm
yeah.
just so happy about all that, which is such a good thing.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, that was kind of the cool thing I noticed on this last European tour that we did. It was funny, like all these band guys coming up to us and being like, "Dang, it's kind of crazy how you guys all actually hang out. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
guys all like go to catering together." Like they thought that that was like weird, but like I could tell we're all thinking like it's kind of weird that you guys like all hate each other. Like, how does
Yeah,
that
dude. Yeah,
last?
I
You
could
know?
not. I mean, we've toured with those dynamics, like other
Hmm.
like us being that band and us being around that band, dude. That is just no way. There's no way to make good music. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. I forgot about that. It was really funny. Like that was Grass Pop specifically. I, I
yeah,
I think it was Grass Pop, but someone was
uh,
yeah. I remember band guys saying that to us, like you guys are just always traveling together. Like, well,
yeah.
we want to be together, and like days off, we're hanging out every day off. It's either if not breakfast and dinner, at least breakfast for you, me, Paulo, and then dinner's you, me, Paulo, Corey, and then the
Yeah.
crew as well, which is awesome. And that's the way it should be. If you got to be away, it should be a communal thing. And
Yeah, for sure. I remember even like when you were it was really funny. I'll never forget when you got back from doing Vakken by yourself. That was really cool. That was rad. But I remember you saying like, yeah, it felt really weird because I didn't have like my like your team with you,
yep,
you know? Like usually when we're at those festivals, it's like we got our
yep,
like our
yeah, we got our click.
established,
Yeah,
yeah, our
like
clique.
you feel unstoppable. Yeah, that was man. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so like going into catering by myself was so weird. I'd see like
uh,
little cliques of bands. I'm like, I can't do this. Like I
I
felt
can
that was the
imagine
first time I
that.
felt like high
Yeah.
school all over again. But then when yeah, I don't even think about that. Like when it's like even if it's just you and I or you me Paulo Corey, like it
Yeah.
makes us just feel like all right, here's the gang. We're good. We can go wherever and
Yeah.
it's fine.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a tribal thing. You're like, oh, like the person that I know that I
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
live with, you're like, you feel a sense of like security and
dude, I
safety.
felt
But then
so
when,
weird there, man. Holy cow.
yeah,
I did not like that feeling. That was weird. That's why I'll never be like a solo artist. But speaking of
yeah,
solo stuff, we've also gotten to do some really cool stuff. Unfortunately, it's always satellite, and it's gonna be satellite for Mritu as well. But Alex played drums for the Dine stuff that's gonna finally be out 2.5 years late.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then that mystery song, if that ever comes out too. But then Mritu's gonna be really awesome. Ishan heard Alex's drumming because Ishan and I had been working Mritu for 10 years now, and he always had an idea of who was gonna play drums on it. And then because you weren't in the picture yet when we first started, we didn't have a drummer that could play like you. And I was like, Ishan, check this stuff out. He's like, he should play drums on Mritu. Yeah, he was just blown away. So that'll be cool to finally get that going too. Mark's mixing it. Mark wanted you to play drums in his studio. I was like, Mark, I don't think we could do that right now. So unfortunately, everything's just frozen right now. But it'll be better eventually.
That's gonna be rad. I mean, you and Ishan, that's gonna be
10 years in the making, man. I hope it'll probably be 11 years before it's out.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be. It would have been cool to go to Mark Lewis's place. I mean, he's such a great producer. I mean, doing the Battlecross record with him and Jason Sukoff was like, that was an experience, man. Those two together were just like such an interesting duo when they were like living together doing that whole thing. Or actually, I don't think Mark lived there, but he was there pretty much every day.
Yeah, Mark engineered Crusade for us, but that was like when Mark was still much quieter. He was like a lot more shy. So he actually engineered that whole record.
Was he buff yet or no?
No, he wasn't buff yet, and he had like spiky hair, like spiky short hair. He did not look like the Viking Mark Lewis that we all know today.
Yeah, well, I remember when we were doing the Battlecross record, it seemed like it was like every 20 minutes, if he wasn't eating an entire chicken, then he was gonna like freak out or snap. So he always had food with him. But yeah, Mark Lewis, another great producer I had the privilege to work with that was part of the connection with you guys, thankfully, you know. So, but that was back when I was doing Battlecross before I even knew you guys. So everything led to this point now with different people, you know. Like I'll never forget another, I guess, kind of interesting part of my story is I was supposed to go to Musicians Institute in LA like when I graduated high school. Like I had everything planned out. I had like scholarships and I knew where I was going to live and everything like that. But there was a gut feeling deep down inside that said that I shouldn't do that. And I couldn't explain it. I just I was like 18 at the time and I was like, man, I just don't know why, but I got to follow my gut feeling. So I decided I wasn't going to go. Everyone was very confused, especially my parents. They were like, what are you doing? You're like throwing, you know, your life away and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, I'm just going to go out and tour. So I was going to go out and do the Archaic tour with Cannibal Corpse, and they were like, that doesn't make any sense, you know, like, what are you going to do when you get back and all this stuff. I was like, I'm just going to follow my gut feeling. And if I wouldn't have gone on that single tour, things would have not unfolded how they did now to the point of meeting you guys. So I always encourage people, like, especially maybe, you know, younger up and coming musicians that are trying to make decisions on what they want to do. Just go with that initial gut feeling. I personally think that's the route to go. You might have people in your ear saying, well, you should do this and you should do this and that, yada, yada, yada. But if your gut, if your soul is telling you to do a certain thing, go with that. Trust that. That would be my 2 cents on that.
That is such good advice. I mean, that's like how we all make music. We don't think about it too much. Like, I'm an incredibly planned, regimented person. And I was asked the other day, like, when do you let go? Like, what is your time where you can let go and have fun? I'm like, I was like, if you asked everyone that knows me, they're probably like, he doesn't really ever do that. But if I like have a schedule, like we're going to eat at this time, that's when I can let loose. Or if it's like, all right, I'm playing games at the time, that's when I can let loose. Or the amount of practice we all put into it, we let loose on the records because it's so rehearsed. Not to make it dark, but that gut feeling that you're talking about, I think is so critically important. The one and only time I was ever like jumped and threatened for my life in 2014, we're all walking. It was 3 of us, and I said to the guys, like, we should cross the street because we're seeing a bench of people. I'm like, this looks fishy. I'm like, there's like a couple people there. This looks weird. My gut said cross the street. I said it to the people I was with. They're like, nah, we'll be fine. Look where we're at. Nothing's going to happen. Then we all got beaten up and threatened for our lives. So like that gut thing is so right. And for you to feel that then, that was right. And, you know, I criticized the Crusade, and like I've got critiques of Vengeance Falls in Silence. But if we didn't do those things, we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't have you.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have these last 2 records. Who knows if we made Ascendancy Part 2 after the Crusade and it was like a 9 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10, and it gradually became one of those bands that makes the same record every time. So yeah, it's all really good. For the final question of the day.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be all time. What is one of your best recollections of something you ate? It doesn't have to be like top. It can be top, just something or whatever comes to mind first. Like one of your favorite things you've ever eaten and where or when.
Ever?
It can be top or just like for the moment, even if just today's like memory of the best. It could be anything.
Oh, man. Oh, my Lord.
Or let's just say it's at like one of your top 5 or one of your top 10. It's just in there, floating in there.
Every time I go to this restaurant called La Mornitas in Modesto, I have the best burrito in my entire life. Every time.
That's awesome.
But as far as like traveling abroad, I don't know. It's hard because I've like had so many amazing dishes with you and the guys. Like there has to have been, man. Come on, Alex. Come on, get it together, Piggy.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, because it's so awesome for you. Like I've always loved eating with you because every time we take you somewhere like a different ethnicity, you're like, this is my first time having it. And I think that's so cool that I get to watch you have that first experience of something.
Yeah, especially because like all the bands I was touring with before you guys were small, so we didn't really get to like go to all these like awesome places like what Trivium goes to, you know. So I remember
I'm trying to remember like a time that you were blown away, but I mean you have been so much. I think even Shin is just such a good example of something that you love that it's kind of unexpected, you know.
You know, there was that time I was, you know, I think you weren't on this tour though. This was when we were with Jared and you had gone home with the babies.
Mm-hmm.
Paolo, Corey, and I, we went to this sushi place in Canada. It was in Vancouver, and Paolo and I were super hungry, and the sushi there is really cheap. So him and I, we decided we were both going to get a family platter. And the people were like laughing at us. They thought it was so ridiculous that him and I were ordering that to ourselves. And it ended up with the guy, there was only one sushi guy back there, so they ended up having to shut the restaurant down. They literally flipped the sign around and put closed because they had to make all of our sushi just for us. And the sushi was amazing, I remember. But the thing about it was we went there thinking we had about an hour and a half to eat, and since it took so long for this one chef to make the sushi, it was getting closer to showtime.
Oh god.
So we were like asking over and over, is the sushi almost done? Is the sushi almost done? And they were like, yeah, it's almost done. And then we ended up only having like 20 minutes left before we were supposed to actually go on stage.
Oh my
and
god.
we still had to like walk a couple blocks too. So by the time our orders were done, they had to pack it up. And I have a couple pictures of it. I gotta like repost it on Instagram. It's pictures of me and Paolo holding these family platters of like 50 sushi rolls, and the lady laughing in the background like, these guys are not going to eat this. And Paolo and I, we walked to the venue and we were eating our sushi on the way to the venue, like as we're walking down the road. And I ate like half of it on the way, and then I played the show, and then I ate the other half after.
Jeez, man.
But I remember it was really good.
It's funny because I'm usually the guy that always over orders, and Paulo or Ashley are usually my censor. Like if I'm gonna go a little too nuts, Paulo will be like, "Hey, let's chill a little bit on that." I think because I wasn't there, Paulo had to go nuts, and then that's really funny. That's awesome.
It was just like a screw it moment, like screw it, let's do this. But I remember it because it was super funny, just like walking down the road, shoving these like tuna rolls in my mouth, and who was with us? Neil, you know, Neil the photographer. So he's like holding these little things of soy sauce so I could like dip it. I'm like, I gotta go on stage. So
I've always said Vancouver's got mutant sushi. It's like gigantic chunks. It's like double or triple the size, and it's so cheap and it's so good.
So cheap.
Vancouver's
nuts.
Yeah,
that was a funny moment I could remember, and I remember it being really good. But if I had to really like think back, there's probably so many endless times where we were all sitting there just eating food like, oh my gosh, this is the best I've ever had, you know?
Many more to come. Many more to come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the food band, man.
Absolutely.
That's the big part of it. I've been watching a lot more like food shows too, so I'm starting to become a big appreciator more of an appreciator of what we do, like,
Yeah, man.
like the Anthony Bourdains and all those people. I'm
Dude,
starting to really
he's the
watch
one that
that.
made me want to do this too. Like, definitely watch all of his parts unknown on CNN. Like, that was just one of the greatest series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to really understand what you've always said as far as like food being so important because it's very similar to like music. How like the beauty of music is like all the different places that it comes from, and like you take a little bit of something from this culture and then this culture brought it to this culture and then it mixed with this culture and all those things. Like that's what makes music so amazing and all these different things. And it's exactly the same with food,
Mm-hmm.
it's so similar. And it's awesome like getting to look at it in that sense and being like, wow, like, so you and I, we actually get to travel to these places and you get to say, hey, what's the best dish of this like region or whatever. Like that's, we're so like blessed to be able to do
Yeah,
that,
man. Absolutely. I'm so happy to be in a band with foodies, man. That's the way to do it. I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear
man.
that. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, Alex. So you're Alex Bent Drums on Twitch, on
Yeah.
YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Is Facebook the same as well? I think so.
I
That's just
think
Alex
so,
Bent.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Alex Bent Drums on everything. Make sure I'll follow him on Twitch. Notifications on, following, YouTube subscribing, following all the other things.
I gotta ask you about something real quick though.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so did Carol feed her husband to those
Oh my
tigers? What do you
God.
think? What do you think? We gotta talk about this real quick.
I don't know if it was that specifically, but there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be investigated, and I think they just opened up some more cases. I was talking about how like a lot of people now are like, "Oh man, free Joe." They find his character really endearing. I'm like, man, he did some really bad stuff. Some really, really, really bad stuff too. I think everybody did some bad stuff. I had this
Yeah.
feeling. I was watching episode 1. I'm like, I have a feeling everyone's done some bad stuff. So yeah,
I was waiting for someone to come out and kind of be the hero, but that's the funny thing about it is at the end they leave you hanging. They're like, yeah, no one sucks.
yeah, man. Yeah, no one is the hero. No one is the hero. I really wanted to cover that song. Like that's the one that everyone said. I was just like, man, it like kind of incites violence a little bit. And like if she sued me for doing that, for perpetuating the message, I was like, I'm just gonna do this one. I really wanted to do that one. But it was just in case. But for people that were freaking out when they watched, I was like, man, that looks like Florida. That is like very Florida, very Oklahoma, very Texas. Like that is very America. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was like saying is like people always ask that haven't been to like those places like the South and stuff. They're like, hey, like what's it? Is it really like this, really like that? And I almost just kind of want to be like, you know what, just watch Tiger King, and that kind of explains it all. I don't have to say too much.
It's pretty Florida, man. When I was watching that, like I was shocked, but I was also like, yeah, this looks very familiar.
Yeah.
It's very familiar. Well, we should play some COD. Is it cross-platform?
Yeah.
Can you play with PC people? Okay, let's get House Sal. Let's set up a freaking, what do you think, 6v6 team deathmatch?
Yeah, let's do it.
Get Alex
Let's
and I
do
on a
it.
team, and then everyone else on a team. You guys all try to fight your favorites. But yes, everybody, this was GLHF episode 2 with Alex Bent. Make sure you're all following Alex. Alex streams a ton, does all the good stuff. Follow him, and that's it.